All right, so today we're going to talk about solving one-step equations, okay? So literally that means we're going to perform one step and it's going to solve our equation, okay? One step. One step meaning we're either going to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. Just one of those things will solve our problem, okay? So in order to do that, we need to use what's called inverse operations. Inverse means opposite. So the opposite of adding is subtracting. So if they're adding, I will subtract, okay? And the opposite of subtracting is adding. Okay? And then the opposite of multiplying is dividing. Okay? And the last one, the opposite of dividing is multiplying. Okay. And remember, multiplying can be an X, a dot, or parentheses. All right, so we're going to use those opposites, those inverse operations to solve our 4 examples down here. All right, so x plus 15 equals 6. So I'm trying to figure out what would x be that we could put it with 15 and it would equal 6. So what we do is we take and we draw a line down the equal sign, okay? And our ultimate goal is to get x alone on this side of the line because the equal sign is always the middle, okay? So we need to get rid of the plus 15 because we want x to be by itself. So we're going to circle whatever's with x and we're going to say, okay, what is the opposite of adding 15? Or what's the opposite of positive 15? Well, that would be subtracting 15 or negative 15. So to solve, I'm going to rewrite my x by itself like I want it to be. I'm going to write the number that's by itself first. So I'm just going to bring that x down and that 6 down. And then I'm going to move that 15 over. So instead of adding 15, I'm going to put minus 15. Okay? And when I do that, I can kind of tell myself, okay, if I have $6 and I want to spend $15, I'm not going to have enough money. So this is actually a integer problem. So I need my positive and negative table. So I'm going to circle my numbers. 6 is actually positive 6. 15 is negative 15. And I'm going to put them in my table. Well, I can clearly see that team negative has way more players. So whatever my answer is, it will be a negative number. Okay, so remember my goal is to get x alone. I'm just bringing that x down. My goal is it to be a negative number here. Okay, so I know different signs but subtract. So I'm going to go ahead over here and subtract 15. Take away 6, and that is in fact going to equal 9. So my final answer will be negative 9. So if I were to plug in, like we did yesterday, negative 9 plus 15 would equal positive 6. And if you wanted to check your answer by plugging in, you could definitely do that. So this answer is negative 9. All right, example number 2. Example number 2 is different only because it is subtracting this time instead of adding. And the variable, the letter, is on the other side of the equal sign, okay? And that doesn't really change anything. I just wanted to point it out, okay? So step 1 is always to separate using that equal sign. So I'm going to draw my line down my equation, down my equal sign. It's an equation because it has an equal sign. All right, and I want to put that 21, right, by itself. I'm just going to bring that down, and then I have a C. So I'm going to put the letter C the equal sign. And then that 21 has to be my first number, so I'm going to write it off over here to the side. Okay? And then I know I need to get rid of the minus 13.5, or you can think of it as negative 13.5. So the opposite of subtracting would be adding. So in order to move that across this line, I need to add it to my 21. So to move it across the line, I'm going to use my inverse operation. The opposite of subtracting is adding. Okay? So now my 13.5 is gone because I've moved it across. And now I have C equals 21 plus 13.5. Well, I know that in order to add decimals, I need to line them up like buttons on a shirt. So over here off to the side, I know my 21 has a decimal at the back, and my 13 has a decimal and then the 5. So I would fill this gap in with a 0, and again, I am adding. So I'm just going to put that plus sign. 5 plus 0 is 0. Bring down your decimal. 1 plus 3 is 4. 2 plus 1 is 3. So my final answer will be C equals 34.5, or 34.50 if it was money. And again, if I wanted to check my answer, I could plug it back in. I could say 34.50 minus 13.50 leaves me with $21. And so again, we use the inverse, the opposite of subtracting was adding. Here, the opposite of adding 15 was subtracting 15. Okay, so let's keep going. Example 3 is now multiplication. Yesterday on our notes, we talked about how when a number and a letter sit next to one another, that it is multiplication. So I am going to actually rewrite this before I solve as negative 19.5 equals 3 times k. Just to remind myself that that is multiplication when they sit next to each other. Now that I've rewritten it, now I can solve. So I draw my line down my equal sign, just like all the other problems. And again, I'm going to circle what is with the letter, the variable. So in this case, I have times 3. Okay? And so what is the opposite of multiplying by 3? Well, that would be dividing by 3. So I'm going to rewrite my problem. Again, I'm going to write my variable by itself. And then I have my negative 19.5. And remember, because I want it to be first, I want it to be the first number, I'm going to scoot it all the way over here, just like we did with the 21. Okay, so I scooted it over to make room for whatever I'm going to do with this. So multiplying by 3, the opposite again is dividing by 3. So that moved my 3 over, and now I'm ready to cowboy and horse this situation here. So I label my cowboy and my horse, and I have a negative, so I'm also going to need integer man. Okay, so I know 19.5 is negative and 3 is positive. So whatever I get, my answer is going to be a negative number. And again, that's going to equal k. So I'm going to come over here off to the side. I'm going to put my cowboy in the house. And I'm going to put my horse outside. I'm going to write out my 3's. Okay. And then I'm going to set my table, big bold decimal, and I'm ready to divide. So does 3 go into 1? Can 3 people sit in 1 chair? No, they cannot. Can 3 people sit in 19 chairs? For sure. So if I continued my 3's down here, I'd get all the way to 21, which is where 19 would fall right here in the middle. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 times 3 was 18. Subtract, get 1 left over. Bring down the 5. 15 is on my list, so I count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I can see that's a 5. 5 times 3 is 15. And I zero out my problem. So my answer for this will be negative 6.5. And again, if I wanted to check myself, I could use the strategy from yesterday where I plug back in. 3 times negative 6.5 would equal negative 19.5. All right. And again, we did the inverse, the opposite of multiplying by 3, which was dividing by 3. All right, our last example, we are going to draw our line down the middle. And just like this one, I rewrote the problem with the multiplication symbol. This is a fraction, so I would like to go ahead and rewrite it as division. So that's f divided by 20 equals negative 6. So that just helps me remember that that fraction is really division, okay? So now that I've rewritten it, I'm going to circle what I want to get rid of, which is going to be this divide by 20. I'm trying to get rid of that to make f by itself. So I'm going to write my problem down here. I have f by itself, okay? And then equal sign, I'm going to start. Oh, no. Guys, I messed up. Oh, no, I'm right. I confused myself. Please hold. All right, so I'm going to start by writing my negative 6. All right, and then I brought my letter down. I brought my negative 6 down. The opposite. What is the opposite of dividing? Well, the opposite of dividing is multiplying. So I am going to multiply by 20. I'm going to rewrite it as multiply by 20. Again, I'm undoing division by the opposite, which is multiplication. So now the 20 is gone and I can solve. Now, when I'm solving, I know that I have an integer man situation. So out here to the side, I am going to draw integer man because it is multiplying with a negative. And I can see, okay, I have a negative 6, a positive 20. So whatever my answer is will be negative. So then I have f equals a negative. And then 20 times 6 is 120. Okay? So again, they were dividing. I rewrote it out this way as division. I had to ask myself, what is the opposite of dividing? Well, that would be multiplying. Then I multiply it out, and that is my answer. So one step, the opposite, multiplied, got my answer. So again, I could plug that in if I needed to check myself. I could say negative 120 divided by 20 equals negative 6, which is correct. And that is solving one-step equations, guys. Remember, the first thing you do is draw your line down your equal sign. You write your letter by itself. You bring down the number that's by itself, and then you do the opposite. Okay? Go practice.